In this video, I'm going to talk to you about propaganda techniques, specifically in regards to the novel Animal Farm. So first off, what's the difference between a technique and an argument? Okay, techniques are used to build up a believable argument. Okay, so we've already talked about logos, ethos, and pathos several times now. Logos is the logic or the reasoning, ethos is the credibility or the sense of right and wrong, pathos is the emotional argument. Okay, there are techniques used to build up those types of arguments. Okay, so the techniques are used to create the argument, which is the propaganda, which leads to that propaganda that is used to influence others to a certain way of thinking. Okay, so keep that in mind as we go through these different techniques. Okay, they can be used in potentially various types of argument. Maybe for logos, maybe for ethos, maybe for pathos, but these are the specific techniques used to create an argument. Okay, hopefully that'll make sense when you start seeing what these techniques are. Slogans are a technique used to create the argument, which is the propaganda. Okay, so the definition of a slogan: a memorable motto or phrase used in a political commercial, religious or other context as an expression of an idea or purpose. Okay, so this is a shortened idea. It is short, sweet, to the point. So what are some examples from Animal Farm? These are kind of obvious. 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. Napoleon is always right. Okay, short and sweet, to the point, easily memorable for those who can't remember a more developed argument. Repetition. Okay, what is repetition? Well, it's kind of obvious. It's something repeated over and over again. Not a off-the-wall definition here. It just is what it is. Something is repeated over and over again. Okay, slogans are often repeated. So again, you see that these techniques are the building blocks. They work together. More than one may be used in order to create that argument. Again, the slogans are repeated. 4 legs good, 2 legs bad is repeated over and over and over again. Ideas can be repeated over and over again. Jones will come back. You could argue that it's a slogan. It's not really used in the same way as 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. But it is something that the pigs use over and over again to kind of get everyone on their way of thinking. Loaded words. Now this is probably new terminology. Loaded words are words or phrases that have a strong emotional response attached to them outside of their literal meaning. So it's kind of similar if you remember the definition of connotation versus denotation. Connotation is that loaded response, okay? So there's a strong emotional response outside of the literal meaning. Okay, Napoleon calls Snowball a traitor and a secret agent. Okay, there's an emotional response to that. You have a dictionary definition of a traitor, but the feelings you have go beyond what the dictionary tells you. You're gonna feel anger, you're gonna feel maybe fear. That's that emotional response. Loaded words. Okay, powerful images. Now this may not sound like something that we could have in Animal Farm, because you can have literally a powerful image, and we'll see that later when we look at real life propaganda. Actual, printed on a poster, seen in a commercial, an image. But there's such a thing as imagery in language too, okay? And so that's how we can see it in a novel. Powerful image is going to be vivid, descriptive, it appeals to the 5 senses, or it creates a mental picture, okay? Old Major's descriptions of animal killings, under the rule of Mr. Jones, would be considered a powerful image, okay? Even though Old Major didn't, make a poster about it, those were images that were imprinted in the animals' minds when he talked about it. Appeals to fears, or appeals to our fears, okay? So when we use the word appeal or appeals in the context of argument, I want to make sure you understand kind of what that means, what that's saying. The word appeal as a verb can mean make a serious or urgent request. And then there's also this meaning of the quality of being attractive or interesting. Okay, so when you're appealing to someone or something or an emotion, you're trying to bring it in the forefront. You're kind of requesting that it be considered. At the same time, trying to make it interesting, kind of the thing that's being thought about and pursued. Okay, so here, with our appeals to our fears, this is an appeal to a specific emotion. So you're kind of always dealing with pathos here. It's a specific emotional appeal. So it's the fear that becomes the emotional propaganda here. Okay, so the example from Animal Farm, the main one is Jones will come back if. Okay, the pigs use that. If you don't let us eat apples, or if you don't let us sleep in beds, whatever the case may be, Jones will come back if we don't get what we need. Okay, now Old Manger also used appeals to fear. He talked about all the terrible things that happen to animals, and because of those things, we need to get rid of man. Okay, so appeal to fear is honestly just kind of not really, in some ways it's not really a technique, it's just being more specific in what emotion is being appealed to. Okay, we also have appeals to our basic desires and needs. Okay, again, it's a specific appeal. Needs are necessary for survival, desires are not needed but deeply wanted. So there is kind of an emotional aspect here. So an example of appeal to basic needs is squealers' explanation for trade. There are materials they need and they just can't produce on the farm. An example of a want or desire would be... Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the examples of propaganda in Animal Farm. We've already decided the argument. Logos, pathos, or ethos, but now we need to look at those things again and determine what technique is being used to build up that argument. Is that piece of propaganda an example of a slogan? Is it repetition? We know that it can be both. Loaded words can also be repeated. Is it a powerful image, appeal to fear, appeal to need, appeal to desire?